Well, the Sinn Féin President, Lou McDonald, joins me now from Dublin on a fairly dramatic night for local politics. Good evening to you, Lou McDonald, and thanks very much for joining us. I suppose whatever happens, Michelle O'Neill is going to have to work with whoever Edwin Poots nominates to serve as First Minister together in the Executive Office. What do you make of the prospects for that relationship, given the way things have gone in Belfast tonight for stage one of Edwin Poots' leadership?
Well, good evening, Mark, and good evening to your viewers. Look, whatever happens and when all of this din dies down and when the DUP dust settles, the reality is that we need to ensure that politics works for the people, that power sharing works, and that in these times where, for example, hospital waiting lists are huge and causing huge anxiety right across society, where clearly people want the economy to function properly again, where we're emerging from what has been a really, really tough public health emergency. We need to get the show back on the road. We need to make progress. That's what people want. And as fascinating as the political drama of an evening like this evening is, the reality is that those of us that are that serve the people and that are in public and political leadership have to knuckle down and get the job done. So that's what we're anxious to see happen. I actually wrote to the party leaders this evening, Mark, to Doug Beattie, the incoming leader of the UUP, to Edwin Poots of the DUP, but also to Alliance and to the SDLP, because I believe that we need to pull together very quickly now the leaders of all of the political parties and establish some semblance of order and direction and common purpose, because that's what political life, and I believe that's what society needs now after a very tough 14 months.
OK, can I just ask you about the mechanics of how you think the relationship between the DUP and Sinn Féin is going to work within the executive? How difficult will it be having a DUP leader who's in the executive but not the First Minister? I mean, who calls the shots? Who ultimately has the closest relationship or the closer relationship? Is that you and Edwin Poots as the two party leaders, or is it Michelle O'Neill and whoever the nominee for First Minister is from the DUP? How do you see that panning out in practical terms?
Well, in practical terms, there are 5 parties around the executive table, and those relationships have to work. It's not.
But there are 2 in the executive office that are critical.
Yes, of course there are, but there's a wider picture here as well, Mark. And we were very clear when the institutions were re-established that the executive would be multi-party, that every citizen would have their voice heard pretty much around the executive table, and that power sharing would be exactly that, power sharing. It would do what it says on the tin. Of course, there's a particular relationship in the executive office, and those that are nominated to First and Deputy First Minister have a particular responsibility to work together, to lead from the front, to act in a way that recognises differences that are clear. The differences, for example, between ourselves and the DUP are as clear as night and day. Okay. But that being said, we have a common responsibility to make sure that the big house up on the hill, that the political institutions that people rely on can actually function and can actually deliver, because ultimately, right, for the average person in any community, they will gauge progress in political life as to whether or not it's making a material difference in their lives. OK, there's quite a lot I want to ask you, and we don't have an awful lot of time here. So let me ask you quickly. You've met Edwin Poots twice in the past week or so. I wonder, did you extract from him a commitment that he will deliver on his existing commitments in the NDNA agreement, in particular the legislation surrounding the Irish language? Because obviously within his own party, he's coming under pressure not to do that. Well, look, Edwin Poots has said repeatedly that he is a man of his word. He has said repeatedly that he will deliver on the commitments that he's entered into. And I've put it to him. And I've put it to him very directly that he needs to now demonstrate that he is, in fact, a man of his word. And I'm mindful of the fact that the outgoing leader of the DUP was clear that the language legislation, the cultural package, would be delivered in the course of this mandate. And now the question is for Edwin Poots to be as good as his word and to deliver. And look, there's no great magic to this, Mark. At the end of the day, when you work together with people, you set your differences aside, you arrive at agreements, and then you honour your word. That's the basic mechanisms for making politics work.
Okay, so you're optimistic that that's going to happen, obviously.
Well, the question this evening, Mark, isn't for me. I mean, we in Sinn Féin want power sharing to work. We want the apparatus of the Good Friday Agreement to work. Above all else, we want to make progress in terms of people's rights, in terms of people's quality of life, their prospects, their opportunities.
Okay.
So there's no question mark around us. The question this evening for Edwin Poots and the new leadership is to demonstrate now how and when they will in fact deliver. And I've made that really very, very clear to them.